Welcome back, folks. My name is LastKnownMeal, and today in Cyberpunk 2077 we're going to analyze the entire rides of the Dark Future trailer and talk more about vehicles in the Dark Future. We have a lot to go through, so let's get into it. The trailer itself starts with a gorgeous pan of the highway, Night City, and one thing we can already notice in the back are the vehicles. I believe they're using the same tactic I noticed in GTA, where if you are looking at a part of the map or part of the road from huge distance, it will load in a bunch of cars to create that feeling, which is a very nice thing. And don't be afraid of the lack of cars on the highway. Sometimes they record these scenes with cars being out, from the dev kit to make the location more clean, or maybe they're, recording this location when, the final touches are still not there. It's quite normal for the presentation of the game. Of course, this looks like the Santo Domingo part of the map, or well, more exactly, Rancho Coronado, but I could be wrong because Rancho itself could be behind this scene, or well, behind V in this sense. Then more shots of Night City, showing a bit more density in the city itself. One thing I noticed is that people are driving like crazy. Obviously the lack of rules is present, which is a nice touch. We can see that by the placement of the NPC cars. One thing I don't like is when every NPC vehicle performs the same. That means they do the same maneuvers, they try to respect the rules, but in 2077 those things are different. Rules no longer apply. Of course, we have the iconic Yayaba Kusanagi bike. This one was inspired a lot by Akira. Here is a bit more clean image of the bike. This was actually one of the first things we had seen about the game, ever. Then a shot of street racing. We saw this image before. Funny though that there is a police vehicle in the back, so they might be also in on it. Keep in mind, street racing now is forbidden, but in 2077, those rules are blurred. Then a much better shot of the NCPD, since in the trailer we saw that we can take their car. I wonder if we can take also their uniforms. That would be cool. Now trailer moves further into the Badlands for more off-road racing action. As you can see, immediately cars are different. They are optimized for the terrain because, well, let's say that a hypercar wouldn't really be able to ride the best over the curves and bumps in the ground in the Badlands. These cars also have a lot more armor than the regular ones. So for example, if you see a Quadra Type 66 in the city, the Nomad version is going to be much different because it's made for a different terrain that we're going to see later in this video. Here we see, I guess, a version of V on another bike. This seems to me that this particular version of the bike is from the Aldelcados, as we can see by the marking here and also some outfits you can get in the game. Now we get a gorgeous shot of a guy overlooking Night City from North Oak, I believe. Again, North Oak is there, but there is also Charter Hill nearby and they border each other, so to 100% verify where this exact location is, I will of course need more info. In the background, of course, we have, I guess, the sport version of Quadra Type 66. Next up, we have two hypercars, and those are Rayfield Erudite on the right and Rayfield Caliburn. Both of these vehicles are super expensive, but we will get into that soon. Also, we have mac and cheeses in the back, another store you can probably eat in. Now they go through a lot of different vehicles here. Honestly, this looks like a garage where we can store our stuff, but of course, since this is a trailer, this could be just a showcase location for the trailer itself. So the first car looks like a Thornton Kolbe, then this might be Thornton Machina, but because Machina I have here is the basic version and this one is redone to insanity, it might be the same car, but who knows. Then we have Quadra Type 66, again I believe. Then we have Thornton Galena, which is a basic one. And here we have the same car, but in the Nomad version. This vehicle is also from the executive branch, but I couldn't find the exact name. If you do know, let me know down below. Then this little guy is Makigai Mai Mai from the economy class. Caliburn again. then a Mizutani Shion, a beautiful and extremely fast vehicle. This could be the version you get from some gang, maybe Tiger Claws. Then we have Herrera Outlaw, another vehicle player can get. This is another version of the same vehicle, if you're interested. After getting the outline of the cars, we get inside of the Rayfield with custom pink seats. Obviously, as the exterior of the cars will be different, that also includes the interiors themselves. Some vehicles will come equipped with an AI tech and other gimmicks to make it look like it's coming from 2077. Then a classic shot of Quadra Turbo R we already know about. We have another shot of Quadra, but this one is just the turbo version without the letter R. It shows you different variants the car will come in. In the back we have, I believe, Cold Blue Hotel and Spa. I wonder what sort of activities are there going to be in that hotel, if there are any activities at all, of course. Another shot of the engine. This one is CGI, but just the level of detail inside the car is insane. If we go back to the Nomad gameplay where V is fixing his car, you can almost see every part inside. Now the next shot is interesting because it shows us the start of Quadra Turbo R. I was personally afraid of how the driving and traction of the tires will be, but it seems it's loose and nice for drifting, and generally it has good control. Again, you know, we will judge that once the game is out. So far we can make assumptions from these shots, but you cannot really feel it until you play it. Then another shot of V riding on Yayaba. The lights in the back are just insane, and I do believe this trailer had RTX on, but I could be wrong because I was mistaken before. A better shot of bike riding from third person. The control on the bike seems decent as well. Now an interior of Rayfield. One thing I like about this is how unique the interior is. Keep in mind, this is the future, and of course it's difficult to make it believable, but also to keep that combustion engine, to keep that sound. That's why this allowed the devs to really focus on the interior, since that's the way that, you know, gives you the feeling of being in the future. And also, since customization is not here, they actually had to create all of these different variants and make them detailed to justify that there is no customization. So they gave us the alternative, and so far from the amount of details I had seen on these vehicles, I'm okay with it. Like, I'm completely satisfied. Then a great shot of V drifting, since we saw how smooth the car can steer and go from a slide into this corner, so that's good. After that we see Street Kid V with his Tiger Claws jacket and a mohawk. More shots of V driving. This is actually the same V that we had seen in the Badlands, I believe. Another shot of the same bike from the Badlands from the first person. What do you generally think about this? Like, overall the motion blur here really adds to the speed, even though generally V is not moving that fast. I always like when there is this sense of speed because it just raises the immersion on another level. Because, you know, some games that have driving in it, and like, it doesn't matter how fast you go, like, you don't get this feeling of going fast. Some games just couldn't actually replicate this feeling of going fast, and I like that here in Cyberpunk you can see it. Next shot is my favorite by far because of the detail of the city in the back. I am personally a sucker for good environment and locations, and generally seeing the scope here is insane. On the building we have an ad in the middle saying new job, get an augmentation, and of course in Cyberpunk a lot of your performance is measured, so people get implants to be faster and better at their jobs. It's not cheap, but it certainly helps. On the right we also have another ad for Sandblast. This is a relatively new ad because it also shows Negaurix, who is a Twitch streamer, if I'm not wrong. CDPR is known to put YouTubers and streamers into their games. In the next shot, I believe we see a bit of a street racing. We can see that by this line on the road, so whenever there is a race, we will probably have this to know where to go. I do wonder if we can disable this. Another shot of the same race, I believe. You also have Nicola ads on the left. Obviously, other cars will be, you know, in the race with us, some random NPC cars, but feel free to nod them off the road if they get into your way. Then in another shot we have Claire. You recognize her from the bar scene in the Afterlife, so it's really cool to see some NPCs, you know, going from being a barista to also doing other jobs. Now, You even have her watch here, and the hair is basically the same. Now, this is from that same racing scene. It's funny to also have her shooting at other vehicles. I mean, that is actually lore friendly. As someone mentioned that this could be us chasing someone, but judging from the lines in the road, it might be a race after all. I mean, expect people to shoot you during the race, it's nothing strange. In another scene, this one in the Badlands, we have more activities we can partake in. This one is probably a time trial where we have to go through these gates. Another shot of us going through the Badlands, but this is where there is a storm. I love the changes in the weather because the same location can look entirely different just if you add these elements and the fog and everything, so that's nice. Next up we have V on the bike. We actually had a chance to see this bike a couple of times, but so far I don't believe we know the name. More spinning around in Type 66, but this time going very close to an NPC. This guy definitely thought he was done. Now, in the next part of the trailer, we have the economy class, which is the lowest tier class of vehicles in the game. There is no style here. If it can run, it's good. In the scene from left to right, we have Thornton Galena, then this might be Archer Quartz, and of course, Mai Mai. In the back, we also have All Foods Factory, which belongs to the Maelstrom gang. Again, they don't own All Foods, but just this particular location. Not sure if this is the exact one. We also have some Chumbas partying in the back, which is something you will notice a lot because the party in Night City is 24/7. We had some shots of the same gameplay footage from the garage, so I skipped that and let's move to the most basic and trash version of Mai Mai. In the game, most of the vehicles besides the top hyper ones will have these worst conditions possible, where you have the dashboard ripped out and of course the car itself almost fell apart. Now we see V driving a better version of the same one, and on the right we have some stats like being an economy class, you know, coming from Japan, and it was made in 2032. The style is entropism, so every car will have its own style or styles, going from those four styles like kitsch, neo-militarism, entropism and neo-kitsch. As it is with clothing, same with vehicles. The vehicle itself is capable of going almost anywhere. As we can see, V is just causing chaos over here, running people over. One thing we can immediately notice, these NPCs over here were armed, and as soon as we ran over one, the girl on the right started shooting immediately, even into the ground. Then we go back to Thornton. The Kolbe Wagon has 182 horsepower and 1500 curb weight. As we can see, it's made during the time of the Red, so from 2045 to 2060. The style is kitsch, and it also tells you what sort of vehicles were made during the time of the Red after the Fourth Corporate War. That was the most Mad Maxian era of the entire franchise, and I would love to see the game set during, you know, those times one day, to be honest, but that's a huge stretch. Next up we have Archer Hella. This is a sedan. It belongs in the economy class and is made from 2023 to 2038. So a very old car. Overall 212 horsepower. This makes a very common vehicle in the city. Next up we have some car destruction. Entire right front of the hood is up. The front bumper is bended, as you can see, but overall the car still goes. I wonder what's the total amount of destruction a car can take. We shall see, I guess, but in some instances, like when V is shooting at Arasaka when he's running away with Jackie from the Badlands, we can see that a couple of shots will make the car kind of go full into the blaze and explode, so that's interesting as well. Then a scene of V pulling out someone from the car. Keep in mind, some people in the cars that are stronger than you will pretty much stay in the vehicle if you try to get them out. They'll probably even hit you. So before stealing, look at who is inside. That actually makes a huge difference on who is sitting inside the vehicle and if you can take that vehicle from them. Also, as Miles said, we won't be able to store stolen cars, only the ones we earn and buy. But when you steal a car, you can just go and drive it. From there, you can also call the vehicle you like and it will come to you. I do wonder though if every car does that. I think, well, every car we can store has that option. I wouldn't expect the most trash ones to have it, but we shall see. Then we have more variants of the economy class. Overall good for certain things, but this will probably be just your starting vehicles before you get some eddies and buy a sport version or whatever. More highway action. Again, don't worry about the car density. This is just for the trailer. And V is driving Mahir Supran, I believe. I couldn't read that well what it says, but yes, almost, or well, every vehicle you see in the game besides the AVs you can drive. Then a shot of V chilling in Santo Domingo with an NCPD vehicle. I wonder if people will react differently if you stroll in a police vehicle. I don't think this is an everyday sight for people to see, just a random chumba in an NCPD vehicle causing chaos. A quick shot of V sitting in a Thornton vehicle, again more variety in the interior itself. Now we move to a more executive class. These vehicles are not the fastest, but they definitely raise your cool level to the max. In the shot from the left to right, we have Villefort Cortez, then Chevylon Trax, and Villefort Alvarado. Now we move to North Oak, one of the coolest places to live in Night City. More vehicles on the left, we can see a difference here. You know, no economy trash cars here. This place is only for the big leagues, or well, the medium leagues if you're on the streets. Of course, more variants of colors, etc. Now we move to the Villefort interior. As you can see, not every car is filled with, you know, neon gimmicks and all of that. Some are more clean, which fits the executive class a lot, but it still has some elements like the dashboard, etc., which makes it futuristic. This next car is probably the sexiest in the game. As I mentioned, this Villefort Alvarado is made in the new USA, so right during the time of the Red in 2044 and between 2055. It's kitsch and has 407 horsepower and is a beefy boy with 2000 curb weight. The car itself is a unique one, and at first I thought this Valentino's guy said we have to race for it, but actually it's a fight, it seems, which also means we have to have a cash to even try and fight for it. I do wonder if we lose in that fight, we basically lose all of our money, because they've said if you fail a mission, the game does not end. If you die, that's when the game actually comes to the game over, where you have to reload it, you know, again. The interior with leather looks damn cool, and just driving this without the roof will be an exciting thing to do. The Villefort Cortez itself is also made between 2038 and 2053, which tells us a lot of these cars. You know, they're old, you know, they were made during the time of the Red, and when everyone was trying to get their stuff together, manufacturing, I guess, skyrocketed during this time in some areas. More Chevylon action in that same place in North Oak, a lot more traffic now. Chevylon Trax is a bit newer one because it's made from 2062 to 2077. Not sure if it's still in development because, you know, but it says 2077, so it's also safe to assume it's still in production. Now, even though it's a limousine, it's packing 388 horsepower. Then Delamain, a car which 6th Street probably loves a lot, and you will probably notice a lot of these executive cars with them, and also vehicles that have the outlines of those old government, you know, FBI, CIA vehicles. I also love this shot of the sun going behind the city, such a nice overall detail. More Valentinos dancing around, they sure love their Villeforts. I mean, I think these are Valentinos judging from the tattoos and the, you know, the gold on them. More interior view and how we will see it, you know, small details on the dashboard and the sun reflecting from the wheel is very nice. Also, the highway looks interesting here with the glass roof. It's definitely gonna show you some ads or some notices in the game, but I do believe the overall car here you see here belongs to 6th Street, as we can see from the back. It also looks like a repurposed taxi, might be one of those AI protective ones. Now we move on to the heavy duty. To be honest, I was not expecting to see this in the game, or at least this much attention being put on them. Of course, all of these big boys are ex-Arasaka Militech vehicles, you know. The manufacturer for this is Kaukaz, you know, they are probably the biggest ones for this. From the lore perspective, they are great for transport to various convoys around the Badlands, because raids and, you know, other nomads or, well, other entities can attack a certain convoy, so of course you want the most protection possible. These things are built like actual tanks. From the gameplay perspective, these vehicles will be useful if you want to force your way into somewhere. Of course, you're not going to go through someone in a quadra, you're going to take this and you're going to basically ram through everyone. Like, for example, this heavy-duty Bratsk from Kaukaz, it's made in Soviet Union between 2027 and 2058. It's funny that even this has a style which is entropism, then a Kaukaz Zeya, which is a smaller truck, probably for radioactive waste transport, but we got the hold of it. Then this bad boy coming in hot to steal your corporation. Next up we go to Claire's garage. Again, this is the same Claire we had in the bar. I guess she will give us this car for a spin, or it might be her own unique vehicle because of this bunny in the back. Again, this truck is called the Beast. More heavy duty like the Militech Behemoth. This one is new, made from 2067 until 2077, so it's safe to assume it's still in production. Now, this got me wondering if we will be able to infiltrate certain bases only by using, heavy duty vehicles which belong to, let's say, Arasaka or Militech, and maybe, we grab the same outfit. It's a great addition to stealth, I guess, but we will see. More destruction, and also we see how this vehicle can easily go around and, turn it. And by looking at this scene, it almost looks like a random encounter, because these vehicles look like they have been placed here to wait for someone, maybe even V. More running over Maelstrom members. Quite normal. Then we move on to the sport category, which is also my favorite. Going from the left, we have Quadra Turbo, then Quadra Type 66, and of course Turbo R. The density of NPCs in the background is nice, and it shows you that some parts of the city during certain times will be empty and some will be full, which makes the city more dynamic and not randomly generated. A bunch of colors in the background. Honestly, one thing which makes this game just stand out so much is the overall colors everywhere. Like, the color palette is just so amazing, and combined with neon light, it captures the spirit of Cyberpunk in a really good way. And the year of production is 2055, or well, during the time of the Red, and during these times, yeah, the time of the Red was on, but at the same time people kinda got back to where they were. At least they did until like 2065. Now keep in mind, this vehicle is also Type 66, but this is the Nomad version of the same car. Here is one more variant. Then a more CGI look of the Mizutani Shion, which has been developed in Japan from 2058 to 2069. Next shot is also in the Badlands, I believe, but this might be closer to the city, so I'm not sure if this is the part of Santo Domingo. This is also Mizutani Shion, the Nomad version, and here is one more version we got in an image. There are a lot of details here, it's honestly insane. More nighttime shots, the light looks nice, and again, I don't know if this has RTX on or off. The gameplay we got during the first wire, the B-roll, also looked like it had RTX, but it didn't, so we might assume, I don't know what to think about this. Honestly, the game looks so surreal without RTX that it's really difficult for me to sometimes notice if it has or it doesn't. Now, as V is driving the Quadra, we have the name of the street here. This is the Ferguson Street. Again, every street in Night City has a name, and NPCs will talk about them like particular streets. Also with the Fuyutsuki ad in the back. More variants of the same Quadra, but this one belongs to the Tiger Claws. This might be one of the more unique designs, as as they said, every single gang will have their own kind of unique spin on vehicles. I am not sure again if this is the most unique one they have, or they will have a bunch of these that look basically the same. More sliding. In the second shot we also have the 6th Street shooting at us, so this is probably Santo Domingo. Also, V is rocking a garbage man outfit, but nevertheless it tells you that you can pretty much wear anything you want from the game. Also, a lot more destruction on this vehicle, some bullet holes. I do wonder if they will stay like that when we actually leave the location with the car, or do these bullet holes actually disappear. The scratches on the car are also well done, and one thing I am interested about is how are we going to fix the vehicles. Like, okay, you ram the vehicle somewhere, you want to go fix it. I do wonder if some of these mechanics in the game will offer these services of just fixing the car as it is, or we actually have to respawn it, so that's also a very good thing to maybe get the info from the devs. More variants here. We have the Wraith car on the right and the Adelcados car on the left. Strange to see them so close to each other without a full-blown shootout. Next interesting shot is also the interior of Quadra. It looks absolutely stunning. I do wonder if the game will have an option for manual or auto transmission. I mean, I know it's too much to have manual, and this is the future, so it's safe to assume most are automatics. Even a whole different wheel here. This looks like an upgraded version of the Formula 1 wheel if you ask me. I also dig this next shot. Look at the amount of trash outside of the city. It's so surreal, and I'm really glad that every single location here is different. It gives you a different vibe, and it's also filled with different vehicles and different people. So yeah, this is nice. Next shot, we got a lot of people worried because V is crossing the bridge here with 0 AI cars. Again, these shots are made like this to give you the sense of the area. It does not mean the area will be empty. Don't worry. Now we move to the most expensive tier, and those are the hypercars. The one on the left is again Rayfield Caliburn, then the Erudite and Herrera Outlaw. I believe in this shot, V is driving the Herrera, and on the top we have a funny thing because it says example text, example subtext. So this is probably, you know, a location which wasn't finished when they were recording this. Also, the ghosting you see in some cases when the car is driving, it's fixed, as said by Marcin Momot, the global community lead for the game, so no worries about ghosting. Overall, Herrera Outlaw is made in Spain. It's neo-kitsch and it has whopping 755 horsepower, which is honestly insane for a limo, but it is a hypercar after all. Also, all hypercars have increased armor besides the speed and comfort. They are made for the rich, so of course it comes with most advanced options for protection. Also, Rayfield Caliburn that we see right now, which looks like a Bugatti, might be one of the fastest vehicles in the game because horsepower on this thing is 1600. It also has a crystal dome, which means once you get inside the car before you turn it on, the windows will appear then, you know, like we've seen in that Rayfield scene. It's basically additional protection and armor for the car, and also it makes other people from the streets, they cannot see your face, which is additional protection. The car is also able to do some serious turns, as we can see here. Then they go and focus a bit more about the Erudite that we try to steal in that B-roll footage. Even the narrator in the trailer says only 1,000 people in the world actually own this car, so it's super rare. Again, crystal dome tech. From the outside you cannot see who is sitting inside the vehicle, but from the inside you have perfect view of the streets and the outside. Well, you have to drive, so it's understandable. Another version of Caliburn, the white one, looks probably the best I've personally seen so far. This is also an entrance from the Badlands into the Night City. I honestly cannot wait to go somewhere on the hill and just look at, you know, Night City like we've seen in this shot. Just look at those colors. Also, you see this ad on the left here, the purple pinkish one. Well, we have a screenshot of female B over there, so that's cool. And of course, in the end, they showcase a bit of Porsche 911 Turbo, which was first launched in 1974. But the version here is the original 1977 look. This car belongs to Johnny Silverhand, and I'm sure he will let us take it for a spin. I mean, he cannot drive, so we can do it for him. Also, this car is currently on display outside of Porsche Museum in Stuttgart. It will be there from October 15th to October 22nd, so you can go and see it in person if you are close. And that's it for this analysis. We had a lot to cover, and hopefully you learned something new. Again, tell me down below what is your favorite vehicle so far, and as always, click that like and subscribe button for more. It's much appreciated, and join our growing community on Twitter and Discord. I also made a Patreon page. If you were looking for an extra way to support the channel, you can do it through there, and huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters. This is LKM signing out, and stay classy everyone. Bye bye.